Hello, everyone. I wanted to talk about my concept of integrated natural living today. So, I wanted to go into kind of how I came up with it. So, it kind of all started with a little thing called CrossFit. And at the time, I became really obsessed with CrossFit because of just what it provided. It felt more comprehensive. So, Greg Glassman created CrossFit to integrate the fitness modalities together and create an integrated system of fitness, and also create the sport of fitness, which united all of the fitness modalities into a single sport of fitness. And the way that he did that was he took the forms of fitness at the time that had been separated, and that people, when they did events, for instance, in sport, they would do one event. They would do sprinting, they would do weightlifting, they would do all of these separate events, bicycle racing, swimming, rowing, all the different fitness events were separated. And so what he did was he said, well, how could we make a holistic methodology to where we measured people's fitness by how well they performed in all of those sports. And he said that this holistic system would lend itself well to all of sport because it addressed all of sport's demands and ultimately all physical demands for people. And I thought that was just so obvious. I thought, why are they even separated in the first place? And it became pretty apparent over time that it's because of compartmentalization and because things have just become so arbitrary and so contrived and so meaningless compared to their original counterparts and the original form of fitness, which was something that was more holistic because that's what's required of us in nature. And so this really became an obsession for me because I thought, well, this is it, this is, to me, it signified the last fitness system because it integrated, it assimilated everything into it. So it almost became this, I called it the last fitness system, or the final form of fitness. Now, I don't believe that that's true now because I think that it is still somewhat arbitrary. But moving forward, I eventually came upon Bruce Lee's martial art, Jeet Kune Do, which in the same vein integrated martial arts into a single methodology, a holistic methodology, because Bruce Lee saw that traditional martial art forms, although functional, although applicable, were only applicable in certain contexts and also had holes in them. They had vulnerabilities. And he saw that when he branched out to other martial art forms and integrated them, that they complemented the original traditional system and actually enhanced it. And of course, you can't just include everything and you can't integrate everything, but you would integrate things that are functional. So this also kind of obsessed me as well, that there was this integrative approach, and I just saw it being used so much. And I thought, wow, what an ingenious way to do it with martial arts, because if we do it in a rigid way, which is usually the traditional way, which does work to a certain extent, it is still rigid. And Bruce Lee talks about being water. He says, be water, my friend, which is to be adaptive to situations, to be able to adapt. Just like water adapts to its container that it's in. Water can flow or it can crash. And that type of philosophy really, really stuck with me over time. And eventually, in the last couple of years, I came upon permaculture, which is, in the same vein, an integrated system of agriculture. And it was created by Bill Mollison because he saw that there wasn't an integrated system for agriculture. And so he set out to create that system, and that's what permaculture is an integrated agriculture system. It's essentially a way that we can do agriculture, right? We can cultivate plants, have animals, those kinds of things without damaging the environment, and it integrates all these different fields into it. And so over time I thought, well, why don't we do this to all of human society? Why don't we do this to human life itself? Why isn't everything integrated together? And it really started to bug me. It was like a splinter in my mind that I couldn't get to go away. Like this truly integrated society, I started to envision in my mind what exactly it would be. And at first, it was this kind of all-inclusive society, but that's not what it eventually turned into. But at first, this vision where I was like, why should we just limit it to fitness, martial arts, and agriculture? Why wouldn't we make a totally integrated human system? And it fascinated me for quite a while. And I eventually became pretty discouraged by it because it almost seemed like too big of a task at the time. This was a long time ago, maybe 8 years ago. And so I shelved it for another time, and I pursued other things. I pursued entrepreneurship, among other things. I got a number of certifications. I got a personal training certification. I tried to start some companies. I even went and got a permaculture design certification, which was amazing. And I don't regret any of that stuff because it truly led me to this point where this splinter in my mind just kind of stayed there forever, almost like a true calling. It was like, you found something and you're not looking into it, right? You found something and you are not seeing it through. You are not manifesting it in the world. And so eventually I bit the bullet and I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to think about, now that I have all the knowledge that I have, right? And I had just finished my permaculture design course, and that really set me up for thinking about this integrated human system, because then I went into kind of the primitive skills and primitive living, the Stone Age living area. I went into natural health, terrain theory, natural hygiene. I really started to see this bigger picture vision of what I now call integrated natural living, which is, in essence, this integrated human system. And the reason why I call it integrated natural living is because in order for us, it's not just an integrated human system, because you could technically integrate the human system of today, but it would still maybe not best serve optimal living. And that's why now I talk about how the integrated human system is really optimal living in nature. Because in order to live on this planet, we have to live with nature. And so that's why I call it integrated natural living. Because it's not just integrated living, because technically you could integrate whatever you wanted to. You could integrate, in a sense, modern society is already integrated. But the thing is that it's integrated towards a degenerative future. So just because something is integrated doesn't make it a good thing. And it doesn't make it optimal for humans. So when I really thought about it, I thought, well, it had to have permaculture in it, because that has to do with, caring for the earth and for people and for the future, and also the holistic design philosophy for designing human ecosystems. So I thought, hey, that has to be a part of it. And then I looked into kind of bioarchitecture and biodesign and biomimetics. And I thought, Well, that has to be a part of it too, because then not only could we design human ecosystems, we could have bio-designed systems that not only are our ecosystems are designed to be productive for us and to allow us to live optimally, but also that our tools and technologies and structures are all designed to be bio-integrated into the environment. And then after that, it goes into health. And so that's where kind of my natural health research came into play, is that I was like, this perfectly integrates with health, and as well, and integrates into the biodesign, integrates into the permaculture, because how can you have these human ecosystems? How can you biodesign, have a biodynamic system without also addressing health? Because I feel like that has to be a part of it. So then, that created a deeper level to it. And I was like, wow, an integrated health system into this, integrated into nature, which is where true health should reside, is in natural living. Wow, that's incredible. And then I kind of kept going with it, and I got into the Stone Age living and the primitive skills communities. And I thought, well, if we're talking about living with the earth, right, living in a biodynamic way, living in an ecosystemic way, living in a integrated, healthy way, well, then we also have to work with only what nature provides us, and we have to be masters of what nature provides us. And that goes back into the regenerative context and into the biodesign context and into the health context, is that what primitive skills and primitive living really is being master of the elements, so to speak, and being the crafters and builders and hunters and foragers, and really being masters of nature, not necessarily masters over nature in a negative way. That's not what I mean. I mean true masters of nature, because that's what we are. And that opened up a huge thing as well, because that also relates back to health and fitness and martial arts. That blends in really well, and I started to see this greater and greater picture coming forward. And then on top of that, we have the ancestral wisdom component, or the ancestral component, which is not only primitive, which goes way, way back to prehistory, but then we have the history component, which is where our ancestors are. That's where the ancestral component is, because things in prehistory, people did things in prehistory that our ancestors did not do, and our ancestors did things that people in prehistory didn't do. And so with our ancestors and what they did, we can, depending on how functional it is, we can enhance the primitive living with some of the things our ancestors did, and potentially things like, for instance, making paper out of hides. That's something that in prehistory they did not do, or at least I don't think they did do those kinds of things, or oil lamps, or there's many things our ancestors did that we could kind of pick and choose and really try to demonstrate in nature if they work better than their primitive counterparts. And I'm not saying get rid of the primitive counterparts, but that's kind of something the ancestral component has, is things our ancestors did that could enhance living in nature on all levels of our ancestry, from government to the way they build things, from their rituals and beliefs, everything. And that builds on the primitive, because the primitive is good, and primitivism has to do with survival in nature. And what this seeks to do is build a human thriving in nature. That's the whole point of it. So primitive skills also has to do with our primary existence on Earth, which is, building, harvesting, growing, hunting, foraging, all the original things that we're supposed to do as humans, that I think we're designed to do, down to the biological level. And that's also, again, that's the integration we're talking about. We're talking about integrating the biology, the ecology, the technology, and the society all into one system. You know, after ancestral wisdom, after that part, the ancestral component, goes into the modern component, which I would say the modern component is a big part too, because as well there are things that we have discovered and know in modern society that our ancestors didn't know and people in prehistory didn't know, and those things could really enhance the rest of the system. For instance, imagine if modern architecture was blended with biomimetics and primitive building, so that you could have primitive building, right, that was built with primitive tools, and you know, that was permaculturally designed, and at the same time it would be informed with the modern knowledge we have of engineering and architecture, and all of that can be integrated together, so that in a sense, quote unquote, we're not living in quote unquote huts, right? Which is what people will normally think of. Oh, well, we're going to be living in huts, aren't we? And no, we don't have to live in huts. What I'm talking about would be something beyond what we have conceived or seen before. And this system is beyond anything that anybody has ever conceived. It is a total integration of the past and present, a total integration of the human story into something more, into a more comprehensive way of living, into what I would describe as the final frontier, which is optimal living in nature. I see it as, in essence, a kind of object at the end of time. Like, that's what I see it as. That's what I see my concept of New Eden being, is the society that is born from this integration process. It's like an object on the horizon in the distance that we are striving towards, that we are putting all our energy and all our ingenuity towards, is this kind of final, this kind of target in the distance, which is, in my opinion, when we get to a point where we're optimally living in nature, to me, that is paradise. When we can integrate all that we've learned with all that we know, we can truly create a better world. And that is my vision for New Eden and integrated natural living as a whole, is to integrate our society into a better way of life. So yeah, that's my explanation of kind of what I described in one of my first videos, but I wanted to do it a little more stream of consciousness, just because sometimes I like to do that better instead of just going off of a script. So yeah, if you definitely, if you like the video, comment your thoughts below and let me know what you think. Anyways, till next time.